Welcome to the Mundus Fractura Lore Guide. This week on Lore Guide, we continue with our deeper look at the Tekhnasthai. Part 2, The Rise and Fall of an Empire. Last episode, through the alignment of a long-thought worthless metal and an inspired bit of desperation magic, we learned how the first of the Tekhnasthai was born. But our tale is far from over. Let us continue. After coming to terms with the situation in what little way she was able, the sole remaining hero, the once elven, now Tekhnasthai mage, made her way back to the council to report the success of the mission and the miracle that may save them all. After frantic but somewhat haphazard study, it was found that only elves could survive this new transmutation. A new plan was quickly set to action. The Frenetic Alliance rapidly manufactured incredibly crude technetium bodies and weapons. They toiled without rest to create vessels. The elves of the Alliance volunteered en masse, and wave after wave of Tekhnasthai troops was sent to buy time for the production of more and better. Like a holy silver rain, washing away the darkness, the Tekhnasthai pushed back the hordes of invaders. The Tekhnasthai were swift as light and invulnerable to the horrific consumption that had scoured so much of the lands. Relentless and merciless were they in their purging of the foul cosmic blight from beyond the clouds. Ceaseless and without sleep, they battled until not a single invader remained. Again the nations rejoiced, and for a time there was peace. The Tekhnasthai, having completed their charge, longed to return to their true forms, held safe in vast magical preservative catacombs. The brightest minds of the Alliance labored long to return the elven spirits to their rightful vessels. The days turned to weeks, and then the months to years, testing the patience of even the most stoic and fastidious artisans of elven kind. The Alliance collectively labored for a solution until the day that the final divide came. The Tekhnasthai had, even in the earliest days, began to separate themselves from the elves that had not made what they dubbed the sacrifice. As the years dragged on, this growing divide, though peaceful, became a true schism. Independent Tekhnasthai lands and governance developed, and slowly even the dream and want of return to their natural elven forms died. Before long, a Tekhnasthai nation was a reality, but still, the divide did not cease. The Tekhnasthai began quietly infighting the Mekkar Tekhnasthai, an isolationist faction proud to remain the strange creations they had become, stood against those Tekhnasthai who still strove to become mortal once again. Quiet it stayed until the day that she who was first, the mother of all the Tekhnasthai, was assassinated. The resulting civil war was a brief one. The much larger Mekkar faction dominated what historians call the Bloodless War. A new day dawned for the victorious Mekkar. Hardened from battle, they turned their ambitious gaze outwards to the whole of Mundus. They swept the land with a speed greater than that of the invaders before them, capturing new elves for the transference and slaughtering all who would oppose them. Before long, all the ancient lands of Mundus Fractura either kneeled in servitude before their metal masters or fell to their blades. But all was not lost, for somewhere in the depths of Mundus Infra, a keen little kobold named Revok tinkered with technetium. We know from the records of the Great Mycelium Archive of Mundus Infra that the rumors and rumbles of the coming Mekkar invasion could be heard in Infra, and the people of the Dark Lands began to prepare. One day, while scavenging quite by accident, Revok stumbled across a rare find indeed. A small Mekkar scarab-shaped scout had fallen from the surface world and was now wedged in a natural rock chimney. The creature, still alive, pleaded for release, But Revok was clever and well-educated. She was not taken in by the Mech-Ka pleas. Pleas that soon turned to threats and dire warnings of retribution. Revok did all she could to ensure the foul little beast would not escape. With great care not to be shredded by its lightning-quick, tiny bladed legs, she pounded it deeper, wedging it firmly into its stone prison. Familiar with technetium, she began to run magical experiments on her subject. After a time, she was able to cause something akin to an illness in the mechanical little monster. It writhed and convulsed. Its movements slowed and strength withered. She bound the little terror in ropes and then removed the tiny mechanoid from its rocky stockade. With her prize in hand, she scurried it to the surface world. Crawling out of a small hole, she walked out into the night of the world above. Stealthily, the kobold made her way through the night until she came upon a pair of humanoid-shaped Mech-Ka sentries who sat talking about the stars while looking up at the cosmos. As the pair discussed the marvels of the night sky, Revok snuck deftly behind them. She placed her tiny bound gift perilously close to one of the pair and skulked away to secret herself in some nearby bushes. As she reached her hiding place, she could hear the strange convulsions begin to affect the one Mech-Ka, and then shortly the other. The two lay unconscious for hours. The sun began to rise, burning her little eyes, but Revok watched on. A battalion of Mech-Ka approached the pair, the commander yelling in a language Revok couldn't understand. The sentries regaining consciousness sluggishly snapped to attention, disoriented. The huge, hulking, scorpion-shaped commander pressed his horrifying face into the sentries one by one, yelling at the pair and motioning for them to fall in line with the rest of the Mech-Ka. Revok was giddy, elated, for the gods had smiled upon her this day. And then, as she had expected, it started. Like the slow ticking of a distant clock, growing until the plague's cacophonous convulsions roared like a horrifying wave over the crowd. The sentries watched on in utter confusion as a 1,000-strong battalion of Mech-Ka troops writhed before them. As the chaos subsided, the sentries frantically tried to rouse their fallen comrades. One by one, they awoke the fallen. Revok sat silently in her bush as they collected themselves and slowly moved off. At nightfall, she collected the tiny, unnoticed Mech-Ka scarab and returned to the lands of Infra to report of the miracle she had witnessed, presenting the tiny scarab as proof of her claims. It is presumed that the evolved arrogance of the Mech-Ka aided in the spread of the Tekhnasthai-wide plague that followed. The actual truth of the Tekhnasthai pestilence is that it was not a sickness at all, but rather a curse placed on all technetium in the cosmos, and it just took some time to naturally spread. As such, not one single member of the mechanized peoples was spared as the curse spread to the furthest reaches of reality. The once nigh invulnerable terrors were again simply mortal. It did not take long for the enslaved peoples of Mundus to realize that their overlords were again vulnerable. The ensuing revolt of the ravaged and enslaved species on their once seemingly invincible oppressors was a savage one. The Tekhnasthai species was all but slated for genocide, regardless of affiliation with the Mech-Ka or not. Collectively, the Tekhnasthai, who avoided the initial revolt, gathered themselves into hidden tomb complexes across the globe, where they would sleep to awaken on a day where the world had long forgotten the name Tekhnasthai. That is all for this time. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for future Lore Guide shorts, and thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.